Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we have a ton of information from DICE about what they learned from the closed alpha and what they're going to change, but also we know when the open beta is going to be for Battlefield 5. It's going to be in early September. Hopefully they'll give us a little bit more of a warning as specifically when that's going to be when it comes around so people can accrue some vacation time, set aside some time from work to really log in the hours and play as much of the open beta as possible. Also, there's going to be a new build of the game available to play at Gamescom in Germany. So maybe we can deduce some things from that. If you do go to Gamescom and can play it, maybe you can figure out what the new changes and differences are. But DICE has actually given us a huge amount of info on what they're changing with the game, and I want to get into that now. So the first and most important thing that DICE said on their blog post today is that what we experienced in the closed alpha was just a sliver, a slice of what the overall Battlefield 5 product will be. So obviously we're using limited weapons, limited vehicles, limited functionality in general. So what we played is not necessarily a good or an accurate representation of the final product. Now that being said, they did take a huge amount of the feedback that we've given them and are already making changes in the game. Starting off with revives. The revive system in the alpha was a bit clunky. DICE are making changes to the timing and animations of it, speeding up certain things like the buddy revive will be faster at about 2.5 seconds to complete the animation. Also, there were periods of time up to about a second after revive animations were complete in which players could not move or react to the environment around them. That has been tweaked and fixed. That all has to do with animation timing and such. And then the time it took to engage a revive after a player had been shot and killed also didn't feel particularly right, and DICE is actively working on the timing of that to try and refine it better. Sometimes you would have to sort of wait for your friend's body to stop flopping around or moving after they died before you could engage the revive animation. So I think DICE is going to try and fine-tune that a bit more. Now when it comes to the attrition system, specifically the amount of ammo that players could carry and how quickly you would run out of ammo in the game, DICE says that overall they got the feeling from the feedback that we like the attrition system, but that they are going to balance it a bit more, refine it. Some classes were affected and hurt by the attrition system a bit more than others. They're going to give some classes maybe more ammo, some classes maybe less ammo. They were super vague with the feedback here, but they gave an example that some classes had the ability to actually engage in combat and pick up ammo from their enemies better or more effectively than other classes, and so they're going to adjust numbers based on this. They haven't said specifically what, so I don't know if the assault class is going to get another magazine, or maybe the scout class will get another magazine, or maybe some classes are getting less ammo. We don't know. It's all very vague, but they're working on it. The next communication was about reinforcements, aka Battlefield's squad kill streaks, like the V1 rocket and the special tanks that you could call in. DICE has said that the V1 rocket was a bit easier to get on matches of Conquest, and that they felt like too many could come in depending on how effective the squads were being, so they're tweaking the numbers there. The idea is to have some reinforcements come in at the end of a game mode rather than them coming in all match long or getting too many of them at the end of the game. So they're working on the numbers to make sure it's not going to turn into V1 spam at the end of Conquest. Time to kill is the next thing that they touched on, and in fact they referred to it a bit as time to death, as that seemed to be the main point of contention with the fast time to kill of Battlefield 5. They said this was one of the more polarizing topics, with seemingly half the community saying it was great and half the community saying it was too fast. What they're going to do, or at least what I am taking away from what they said, is DICE is a bit vague with some of their feedback, as it gives them a little bit more freedom to test things out and they don't have to commit to one idea if they decide it doesn't work out too well. But it seems like they're going to try and put more tools in the game to help you react or figure out where enemy fire is coming from. They said that seemed to be sort of one of the bigger issues, is like you would take fire and you just didn't have enough time to react or enough tools to figure out where it was coming from before you were dead. So I think they're going to work on some tools that they probably just didn't have implemented yet in the alpha to help players figure out where they're getting shot from and react to it. They also said that playing in a squad and being more cognizant of your environment is also a big factor of Battlefield. And this is something that I touched on as well, is the time to kill in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 was very fast. And what it did is it changed the gameplay style. Players would put a bigger emphasis on peeking and their routes through maps, and just playing more cautiously and carefully. And so if you're coming from Battlefield 1 into Battlefield 5, you might come in with a Battlefield 1 playstyle and have to adjust that for Battlefield 5. So I think they're probably going to keep the time to kill at what it is now. This is what I'm assuming, but they're going to adjust things like recoil on certain weapons and try and give you more tools to sort of react and respond to it. Also, they said that they're playing with camera shake as well, so I would assume this means they're lessening a lot of the camera shake. So if you start taking fire, it's not one more hindrance to try and return fire and win a firefight. So I was able to turn on many people in the alpha and win firefights even if I wasn't the first one shooting. But yes, the fast time to kill does put a much bigger emphasis on positioning, who fires first, and basically peeking and careful movement tactics. The blog also showed off some cool looking telemetry images that they got from the alpha, showing player paths, popular engagement zones on the map, and how they're going to use all this information to better balance the maps and adjust cover positions and stuff like that. Overall, it sounded like they were pretty happy with the way that the map flowed out on Conquest. And for the grand operations with the parachuting stuff, they said that they're using the telemetry to adjust the plane paths, as I guess some players were not making it very far after the parachute. So they're going to mess with stuff a bit there. The telemetry is pretty cool because I think it'll allow them to make much better use of where they put cover in the map. If they realize that everybody's fighting in spots A, B, and C, they can say, okay, well, let's focus a lot of our cover building in those areas, and it'll give people more combat control over those areas. And if they see that nobody's fighting in certain areas where they put cover, then yeah, maybe just get rid of those cover areas, or you know, they don't need to work on it. So that it is cool to see the telemetry, but they didn't really give us too much specifics on what they're adjusting to the map design, just that they got a lot of info from the alpha that they can use to work on the map. When it comes to gunplay and weapon balancing, again, lots of vague feedback here from DICE, but they seem to indicate that they understood that some weapons felt a little bit too powerful and that they're going to use recoil as their main tool for balancing this. So basically, recoil has completely or almost completely replaced the spread mechanic, and so if they feel like one gun is just too easy or it's too effective at all ranges, they can use recoil to balance it out. But the benefit of this is that the more you use a weapon that has high recoil, the better you'll get at compensating for that recoil and knowing how to burst fire that weapon. And so their main plan here is still, and it sounds like it has been from the start, to let players really master weapons. Like if you get 100, 200, 400, 1,000 kills with a gun, every additional kill or even missed kills will teach you about that weapon's recoil, how to control it better. And so the more you play, the better you'll get. And that's really all we can hope for with most first-person shooters, is that there's a nice high skill ceiling. They also mentioned that they like how certain weapons are far more effective when switched into single fire mode for ranged combat, and I have to agree with this. I think it's pretty cool that they're able to implement this effectively, as this is something that games like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds have really capitalized on, is the fact that, hey, guess what? Lots of automatic weapons are not very effective at long range when fired in full auto mode. If you actually want to hit your target, you're going to have to semi-auto fire them. And so that's cool that they've been able to implement this in an effective way in Battlefield 5. And I'm personally very excited about it, and it sounds like DICE is too. Now, unfortunately, they didn't really mention anything about air combat, which I think is one of the bigger issues with the Battlefield 5 alpha. They do say that they're going to work on vehicle controls. I assume this will mean air combat. They haven't mentioned anything about air versus ground combat though, or how airplanes just can't really do anything against ground targets right now. So I don't know what DICE's plans are here. Maybe they still have to figure it out. Maybe they have a lot of testing to do. That's my guess, is that they still haven't quite figured out how to solve the air versus ground dilemma that existed in the alpha. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. Hopefully the Gamescom build will give us a lot more insight into that, and we can be prepared for the open beta in September. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.